Greetings and welcome to Retention Chronicles, the podcast with learnings from expert e-commerce brands and partners. I'm your host, Mariah Parsons. If you're here, you're either on a quest for e-commerce enlightenment or you accidentally clicked the wrong link. Either way, I am thrilled you stumbled into our corner of the internet, and I hope you'll stick around. We've got pearls of wisdom for everyone, whether you're running a multi-million-dollar business or simply just starting out on your entrepreneurial journey. Before we unleash the brilliance of today's guest, let's give a shout out to our podcast sponsor, Malomo. Malomo is so much more than just another Shopify app. They're post-purchase wizards, making beautiful and branded order tracking smoother than a jazz solo, so our amazing founders, like our guests, can keep their customers happy and up to date while they track their orders. So hit that subscribe button, like it'll increase your LTV overnight, and go listen to our other episodes at gomalomo.com. That's GOMALOMO.com. Get ready for insights, chuckles, and perhaps a profound realization or two with this newest episode of Retention Chronicles. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Retention Chronicles. Super excited for our guest here today, as I always am. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm super excited to learn a lot more from you and just have a great chat. So if you would do us the pleasure of introducing yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, that would be great.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me. My name is Jonathan Penna. I'm the co-founders and CEO of a company called ORBYT Group. We're a very small e-commerce aggregators, and we have two brands. One is called ORBYT Skin, and the other one is called Azio Beauty. In that sense, so
love it. So, can you expand a little bit on like how you got into this space? Because I think it's always interesting with e-commerce being, air quotes, relatively a new industry, how someone lands in this space, because I very much felt like I was enticed by the community and the team we have at Malomo, but knew nothing about e-commerce before getting into it. So it's always a fun backstory to dive into. Can you share a little bit more about that?
100%. So in reality, and I'm French, and this is going to be super cliche, but I used to have a bakery.
Oh my gosh, stop it. That is so amazing.
I promise you, yeah. So the story started like in 2019. We essentially raised about £1 million to basically build like a B2B bakery that was essentially delivering to hotel and restaurants. And the little story, so we spent 1 year building this business, and we literally launched the 1st March 2020. So it's like literally 20 days before COVID lockdown.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So when we launched, we had about like £2.5 million of like contract signed with like big hotel and big restaurants. And all those contracts went to smoke. Obviously, COVID is like force majeure type thing. Mm-hmm. And we had about 20 staff when we launched. It was a pretty big operation because to make bread, you need a lot of people, etc., especially at big scale. And yeah, very quickly, I was like, fuck, the market is too fucked to even think of scaling in this industry. And most of our investors were actually restaurant owners. So we were like, look, we haven't spent most of the money, so we basically shut down the business, returns the fund to investor, and then I was just left with a business that just fall apart because of a pandemic, no job, and the only stuff to do with e-commerce in that sense. So that's really how I end up in the space, really.
Okay, so is it right after the bakery and expanding on the B2B side of that you dive into ORBYT Group and start doing some stuff there?
Yeah, when I started, in reality, it was, to be honest, I was just purely like trying to sell a bit of everything in that sense. I was just trying to get better on marketing, trying to understand how we worked, etc. And to be frankly honest with you, I literally bought a course online. And I sit down in my room for like 2 months. Didn't really see much of the light outside, and just try to like launch brand, etc., etc. And actually, like ORBYT Group came way after. About like, I think so that was 2020. I think about like 6 or 7 months after, I meet my co-founders, Maxim and Luna, and we wanted to build a men's skincare brand, ORBYT Skin. And we started working on the project, working on the brands, and then we had to basically go to Korea to meet some supplier within the skincare industry. And my girlfriend mom, she owned like an aesthetic clinic in the UK, and she basically retailed as very expensive skincare. And I knew the price, I knew everything, and a bit random when we were in South Korea, we basically walked into a showroom, and I literally saw the same product being sold, uh, not sold, but
Whoa.
like being exposed in the factories. And when I was speaking with a chemist, I was like, okay, how much does this product cost to make? Like, what's the sort of process to do this type of stuff? And that's when essentially like the concept of Azio came to light, because at this time we realized that the skincare have like some crazy markup, and this product that they were retailing for 150 pound in the UK cost actually like not even £7 to manufacture in South
Yeah.
Korea. And when we look at like how those brands were actually distributing the product, we were like, okay, so they manufacture the product in Korea. This is being sold to like a distributors in the US, then it's being sold to like a distributors in the UK, and the UK distributors distribute it to like clinic. And we were like, okay, so many like different steps. We could have the same quality and be direct to consumers, and basically pass all those savings to customer, and using subscription to further reduce the price, etc. And that's when Azio launched, basically. So initially, we end up with two brands, ORBYT, Azio, and we were like, okay, let's just try to scale both. And we're gonna see which one of the brand work the best, and then we're gonna try to like capitalize on this to like basically scale it further.
Okay. Do you feel like you have that answer now of like which one is kind of
Yeah,
doing better? Are you
yeah,
willing to share a little bit
yeah, 100%.
more?
Like Azio Beauty is doing way better than ORBYT, especially when it comes to retentions. And I think, like the mistake we made with ORBYT, to be honest, was we're a bit more too generalist when it came to skincare. And I
Mm.
feel like if we were more like targeted to, like, let's say acne, for example, men would have been way more keen to essentially commit to a subscription and keep it for the long run. Um, Acquisition for ORBYT always been easy, but the retention's been terrible. And with Azure, acquisitions been a bit more complex, but retention on the other end been amazing in that sense.
That's so interesting that you're kind of running like your own A/B test with brands. Not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
in one, usually someone who has one brand is running A/B tests within that brand, right? But being able to kind of compare the similarities and differences between the two brands and see like acquisition is higher on one but lower on the other and then vice versa. Do you have any insight of as to why that is, or do you think that's really because like the messaging was it sounds like a little bit more tailored for Azio Beauty than for ORBYT
it's
Skin?
clearly. I think it's clearly, like the offer that we had for ORBYT was mainly focused on like having like a reduced trial to try our product. ORBYT
Mm.
was a subscription first brand. We didn't do any sort of like one-off purchase when we started. So to be honest with you, I feel like just the offer was more compelling on ORBYT, but then like on the flip side, the retention was terrible. With Azio, we actually started the brand by mainly being on pre-orders. So when we started Azio, one of like the biggest issue that we have was just to supply the demand that a product has in that sense, and it was very often like sold out. And
Mm.
that's when we started using a tool called Purple Dots to like basically enhance the sort of like pre-order drop, etc. And what we realized was like the first time that we launched a pre-order drop, it got sold out very quickly. And then we were like, okay, let's just try to run like paid ad on those. And we actually saw like a CPA increase, but like not too much. We basically decided to keep this sort of like pre-order strategy in that sense. And for the first full years, we basically scaled to, I think we did about 2 million the first year,
Wow.
100% of pre-orders. So it was
That's
mainly pre-order
crazy.
job. Yeah. And
Wow.
then after,
Okay.
so, and then after like when we started to have more cash, and it actually enabled us to create like this beautiful negative cash flow conversion cycle, because we're actually pre-selling our product before to have to pay for them, which, in an ideal world, that's where you want to be when you run a brand. So this basically enabled us to scale very quickly without external capital in that sense. And then after, like, we use this pre-orders build up at our advantage when we launch our subscription offering, because one of the main perk when you subscribe to a brand, we were like, okay, if you subscribe, you basically are guaranteed that you have your order coming regularly. So you don't need to go through like the pre-order pain that you had since 1 year. And that's why, like, I think the first month that we launched the subscription, we had like 6,000 subscribers straight away, basically.
Wow. Okay, so I want to drill into this a little bit because it's interesting to me, like the pre-order side of things. I feel like, and I'm curious if you agree, you see this a lot with like celebrity brands or like someone who already has a really big following of like pre-launching something and then having major success with kind of this strategy around like FOMO marketing. So, do you think that was what was lending success to this of like seeing that other people have it and then wanting it and then running like ads on the like saying the pre-orders, or do you have any idea as to why you saw you could get to 2 million in revenue based off of
I
this
think
strategy? Because we haven't talked to another brand who's kind of seeing this, except for one agency that kind of works with pre-launch brands and they're
okay.
more creator brands, so I'm
I
curious.
think I think to be honest with you, like we've done this because we didn't have any other option. We needed to sell. We didn't have any stock, and the only way to take money now and to fulfill the order later was literally doing pre-orders. So initially, we really pushed it out because we needed this money to get into inside of the company, and I felt like if, for this to work, you need to have a good product, and you need to have customers that are willing essentially to wait for like 3 weeks to, like, when we started, like we had a 2 month delivery time frame, so it was massive. And then slowly we started to reduce this time frame from 2 months to like 2 weeks in that sense. So it took us 1 year to fully reduce this. Um, but I'm not too sure why it worked it that well. I guess it was just probably like more education around a product, because what we realized initially was our CPA was like very high when we started, and then it started to go down when people actually expect for when they buy your brand to be on pre-orders. And we could see like in the comments on the ads, they were like, oh yeah, if you see them in stock, buy like 10, 15 because they might be sold out after. And you have to wait 2 months for it in that sense. Um, so we really had like this sort of like network effect of people fully understanding that if they wanted to buy our product, they had generally had to wait. And if basically they were coming to a product page and the pre-orders were basically being released in like 3 weeks time, it was actually a good deal and a good time to buy now, because potentially it could have been like 1 month, 2 months in that sense. So yeah, I guess just
Okay.
a lot of education.
Yeah, a lot of education. It sounds like also UGC to back up that
Yeah, yeah.
education of people in the comments saying like, oh, this is good enough that you're gonna want multiple bottles or products or X amount quantity, and then you don't want to have to wait. So like order it up front in the pre-sale. Do you remember what the ad creative looked like specifically? Like, are you like advertising that you'll like you'll have this product go on pre-sale opens up for this product in 3 weeks, or is it just like, is it more
No,
like educational, more like word based?
basically, like we our team was we're too small at the time to really have a lot of different type of creative that say, okay, we do a drop for the next 2 weeks and then it's going to be back in stock, etc. So like all our creative, we're mainly using direct response marketing with UGC creators and a lot of whitelisting as well at the time. And basically our messaging was very much like, it can be on pre-orders. If it's on pre-orders, like basically you have to secure a space because you might not be able to get it when it's in stock. And if it's in stock, you better get a lot now because it might be sold out very quickly. So we had like this evergreen type messaging that could work whether it was on pre-orders and whether or not it was on like fully in stock in that sense.
Okay, wonderful. So has the team grown since like when you were running these campaigns, in terms of like, have you experimented in trying to have a little bit more targeted creative, or is it still like that evergreen strategy of just keeping um
Well, Now we
with the
don't do any
messaging?
more pre-orders, and yeah, the team have grown quite quick, quite a lot now. But at the time when we were doing like a lot of pre-orders, to be honest, it was only like my two co-founders and myself, and then we were working with like few agency, especially when it comes to like paid ad, etc. But yeah, no, we always had like this sort of like evergreen type marketing, and the thing is like one of the reason why is just because we didn't have any visibility as well on the stock. So it was very hard for us to like say, okay, in 2 weeks we're going to be sold out because maybe we will be sold out way before, and sometimes it will take like a bit more time in that sense. So even if I remember correctly, even like our email marketing strategy, it was super evergreen. So sometimes it was sold out and on pre-orders, and sometimes it was fine, and our messaging remained the same.
Okay, that's really helpful. So, was there any worry from you of like, oh, someone and right, some of it was you couldn't um sometimes you just couldn't do anything, right? If a product is sold out, then it's sold out. But was there any worry on your side of like, oh my God, we're missing these people that want our product but aren't able to get it? Was that any, I guess, was there any emotion attached to that? Or you were just so excited and hyped that it was going so well that the product was selling out?
No, to be honest with you, like obviously we knew that if we were fully stocked, we could have made a lot more money, but at the time, like we couldn't have more stock. And as
Yeah.
well, like it tied up as well to like the way we manufacture skincare because a world brand concept is like luxury skincare without a luxury price. And to be able to achieve this, we have to use a network of labs, and a process to actually manufacture those products is a bit more complex than just having a key like a turnkey supplier when we can go and in like few weeks it's done. Like we have to buy the packaging, then we have to buy the ingredient, and then we have to find the best contract manufacturers, etc., to actually do the assembly and to build the formulation. So we had like longer term, like a longer sort of like manufacturing process in that sense. So we knew that we couldn't be more quicker, and we like as well the idea of like all this marketing around the pre-orders, etc. And at the same time, as soon as we restock, we could see like our sales triple, our profitability increased by literally a lot. And after, like if I just look back what we do now, so now we mainly drive by subscription, so we're subscription first brands, but we try to keep this type of FOMO that we used to have with the pre-orders by having something that we call the dynamic pricing when it comes to like a one-off purchase. So basically, the way on how we work is if you want to sort of like get a subscription today, you will have like the subscription price like that's on the website at the day of today, and this will be locked forever. But
Mm.
if you come back next week, the price might change. So we're really trying to push people into subscription that's fully customizable. You can cancel anytime. You can do what you want with it. But at least you're on a subscription and you have your price essentially are locked in. Because a one-off price can vary based on like ingredients, can vary based on like demands and stock as well. But we still try to keep a stock for a subscriber, of course. So when we kind of like run low in stock, we're just gonna put the website in pre-orders for like 2 months, for example, at the day of today, keep our stock for subscribers, and then as soon as we have a big restock, we basically take more subscriber inside of the brand.
Okay, fascinating. So, how, to like power subscriptions, how are you using something in your tech stack to do so?
Yeah, we're using
Okay.
Skio to be honest. Like
Mm-hmm.
we use Recharge first, but then we realized like Skio was way better when it comes to like the flexibility of like skipping, editing your subscription, etc. It was way easy for the customer. So we made a switch in I think it was in November's, and honestly like we've been loving it.
Okay. So yeah, I'm familiar with Recharge, not so much as Skio. So I'd be curious to hear kind of um where the platform, but we can chat more about that later. So with the what is it called? What did you call it? Like the lock in the price?
We basically call it like dynamic pricing.
Okay, dynamite pricing. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, is that something you've rolled out more recently, like with the addition of Skio to your tech stack in November, you said, or was that something that you've been doing for a while?
No, it's something where like we implemented subscriptions in October's. We then moved with Kio in November. We used to be with Recharge, with ORBYT, or main skincare brands. We knew well like the tool in that sense. And dynamic pricing, we've been testing it out since I think it was mid-January this year.
Okay,
So it's
so
something quite recent.
relatively recent, like couple months,
We,
yeah.
yeah, we're still doing a lot of like A/B tests. We have multiple like product page template that we switch at the moment, and we're still trying to find like the best way to calculate a pricing. But honestly, like it's something that we're very excited about, just because um, I feel like if you truly have a dynamic pricing, when people subscribe and commit to a subscription, like they're way more keen to stay in because they know that the price will essentially change down the line. The only like important stuff to give to your customer, if you do this, you need to give like a fully customizable subscription. Like they
Yep.
need to be able to do like everything they want when it comes to like setting up like their own delivery date, skipping orders, making sure like you let your customer know at least like twice before the order renew, etc. Because I feel like the more the less you let your customer know about it, the more they will be willing to like just cancel, and then it will be of course harder to get them back in on the tool.
Yeah, and they'll be frustrated with, having gone
Yeah.
through that annoying subscription process before. So let's double tap on that because I think it's we're changing the thoughts around subscription, but in the past that hasn't been the case with like letting your customers know when they're about to be receiving product from their subscription. I think a lot of brands in the past have gone with the notion of like silence is better, of like trying, I don't want to say sneaky, but it's like a little bit sneaky of like
And we
trying to
did
make
it.
it, yeah, like trying to make it difficult to remove a subscription if you want to get off of it, trying to kind of like hide a bunch of these things, which it kind of it blows up, right? Because the customer gets frustrated. The brand support team is then flooded with requests of I want to cancel my subscription. Why is this so like difficult to do? All that stuff. And then you're also losing revenue because you're making your customers upset and you're losing out on that retention of retaining that customer.
100%.
So
Like
and this is oh yeah, go ahead.
just to give you a bit of information on this, like when we launched ORBYT in June 2022, that's exactly what we did.
Mm,
So I think we did like close to 1 million in like annual recurring revenue the first month of launch. And so we were super buzzing about the success of the launch, etc. Super
yeah,
happy.
very exciting.
And then we were like, okay, let's just try to make it as hard as possible to cancel. So we keep the people on the tool, and like they'll probably be like, yeah, that's fine. Terrible mistake.
Yeah.
Terrible
So
mistake.
you learned,
So
yeah.
and we paid a price for it. So
So you see, and I think unfortunately, it's either hearing about like cautionary tales from other founders of like, you might be tempted to do this, don't do it. Or it's experiencing it yourself with either another brand or the brand that you're currently working on, and
yeah,
then have to maybe remedy some of that approach before. And so I wanted to ask with subscriptions specifically and like trying to get people on a subscription. I know before we were chatting, this is a big thing that Malomo obviously can help with, of like the order tracking page, of pushing someone to just even know about your subscription program on that in that part of the post purchase experience. So my question to you is, what other, I guess, areas of the or parts of the customer experience are you trying to push that subscription um to your already your first time buyers or your repeat purchasers that aren't
yeah.
on subscription?
At the moment, I guess like we mainly, obviously, like we try to have at least a 30% opt-in on subscription on like cold traffic. That's the
Mm-hmm.
sort of like target that we have. And of course, like sometime when our base pricing will be higher because we have low stock, so we decide to essentially like put the one-off purchase at like let's say £50 and the subscriptions price stay at £24 or whatever is the price today. We of course gonna get like a higher opt-in on the subscriptions, our conversion rate will take a little bit of a hit. But at the end of the day, we're subscription first brand, and like we're happy to give few point of conversion if we have to get a lot more subscriber. But I guess most of where the conversion after will happen in our funnel will be by email marketing down the line, when we're gonna have a lot of offer for them to essentially switch to subscriptions. And then we have another funnel when we're gonna try to like increase the average order value in the subscriptions by giving them free products, or giving them like discount if they take like a bundle with something that Skio do very well is like quick action links. So it's just a link that you put in your email flow, and just when you're going to click, it will automatically switch this product for like a bundle, for example, and it's very easy for the customer to do so. So we had a lot of success with this. But to be honest with you, and like the tracking page is something that we clearly have left out. And I'm super curious to know how we can sort of like increase the conversion of non-subscriber to subscriptions through this channel in that sense.
Yeah, totally fair. I love the point that you make of like the quick action links. I think it goes along with the same notion of like making it easy to customize your subscription, and now there's tech that can like actually help do that, so it's not the brand having to do it all on their own. It goes with the same notion of like, if you make it easier for customers, it kind of seems counterintuitive as a brand founder to make it so easy for customers to like change. And I think the scary part, just from having spoken to 100 plus founders, is like you kind of lack control over what the customer is doing, but that's exactly how it should be, right? Like every customer is different, but the scary part is that you're giving up that control. But we see this time and time again of, if you're more proactive with your shipment notifications, or with your you're actively messaging your subscription program, then you're putting the onus on the customer, and then the customer feels like they have more ownership, so they're more involved. Like nobody likes to be forced to do something, right? It's against our psychology. Yeah. So 100%. It's one of those things where it at first glance can sound counterintuitive of making it really easy for people to swap things out, or to customize, okay, like this is the frequency that I use the product on, this is what I need, whether that's shorter or longer purchasing cycles. I think it's really easy to focus on like, oh, if a customer is able to customize their subscription experience, the fear, and that's where like naturally we tend to go, is the fear is like, okay, they're going to put like 6 months, say your average purchasing cycle is like 1 month, right? Or that's your goal. The fear is someone's going to put 6 months from between order to order. And it's easy to focus on the cohort of people that will be doing that. But just as easily, you can see the reverse, where people are going, okay, my whole family uses this, or right, like all my siblings and I, right, whatever the case is, we use it so much that we want to purchase it every other week, and like shorten that time from what the original goal from like the brand side of the perspective is. So I think it's conversations like this that help, I guess, reframe the way that people are looking at the like potential, I guess, devastation, right? But there's also a lot of potential growth when you put the ownership on the customer, and they're able to be happy throughout the buying experience and say like, no, I really like this product, I want to buy it when I need it. And that's how it should be. So it's one of those things that I love hearing more and more, that brands are tending to go in that.
And as well, like just on this, I feel like one of like the biggest reason why people cancel, generally speaking, is like, number one, they don't like the product, and number two, they have too much product. And from experience, it's very hard to like estimate how much someone will use your products. For example, like us in skincare, we have some people that will have like a 6-week turnaround, and some people might have like a 3-month turnaround. Yeah. Just because they use less product and they're happy like this. But as a brand, it's very hard to like estimate. So, like if you don't give the option to fully like customize this, you're literally shooting yourself in the foot for sure.
Yeah. And two, I think it comes down to like, as a person, do you like having a subscription because it's taking care of you, and that, or it's taking care of for you so you can like have one less thing on your to-do list? Or do you like being the person that is like, okay, I like to decide okay, I can see that I'm running low on my product. I want to purchase now. And so it's like, even just as person to person, like I know myself as a buyer, I tend to subscribe to things that obviously I know I want and need because it's like one less thing that I have to do. Right. So if I can like set up the cadence where I know this is, I've used this product for X amount of time and I'm going to go through it this quickly, I can set it and forget it. That's easier for me because I'd rather have that. But I do know some people where it's like, I don't want any secret hidden fees where it's I'm not expecting them to be charged to me and all this other stuff where they would much rather go and click that button every single time because it makes them feel better. So even like going from the how they're using the product and just how as a person they are, I think the customizability that these subscription programs are giving customers, it really helps. And like it sounds like what you said around the option of skipping all the middle people, of going from the manufacturer to getting the product in store, you went D2C. And that is the beauty of talking directly to the consumer, is you get to market and be so personalized to the consumer, in this
100%.
type of business, that it's so much fun. And so so much of such a newer age, I feel like, of the customer experience and marketing and all of that in general.
100%. And Evan, like the funny thing is like last day, so we track like this cohort of customer that subscribe will cancel straight away.
Mm.
And really often like they just cancel straight away just to make sure, as you mentioned, there's no hidden fee and they can actually cancel. But
Ah.
it's about 20% of those customers that will then straight away start another subscriptions with another product, and then it will merge the subscription together and it will keep the subscription up to running in that sense. So it's a bit like, they just want to make sure they can actually cancel. And when they see that everything is working fine and like they can fully cancel and there's no hidden fees, etc., they will be like, okay, I'm actually going to resubscribe and maybe add another product that I think will be good for me. And then after they will just stay and not cancel the subscription straight away, which is funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. Are we hilarious as humans, right? Like the the buying habits and the I studied psychology in undergrad, and so like yeah, consumer and buying purchases or buying behavior is just so interesting. If someone would like cancel right away, to be like, okay, I know this will be okay to cancel if I ever need that. But now that I have the reassurance that I can, I'm like all in, right? And that's exactly what you want to see. How did you find out that that's kind of what people were doing, and like canceling the subscription right away to make sure that they could and then purchasing more? Was it just like evident in the data, or did you kind of have this aha moment where you were like, oh my God, from feedback or whatever else, people are doing this?
No, no, no. So we're kind of like super data driven. So we like just trying to understand like what type of people cancel, what are like the main reason for cancellation, because then obviously will help us to sort of like tailor the program for like future people. But and no, to be honest with you, it was like just a metric we couldn't track natively in Skio, and we wanted to like understand like this first sort of like customer that cancel straight away. So we managed to like work like the metric, but yeah, no, it was just ourselves.
Okay, wonderful. So I know we've been obviously talking a lot about subscriptions because it's I think it's and pre-sale and all that, because it's very interesting. And this is exactly what the podcast is for, right? Of wandering into different tangents and figuring out, what's interesting, what to double tap on. I do always like to ask though, what are so in addition to, right, growing revenue and retention, sounds like a lot of the lever that you're pulling for that is subscriptions and working through all of that. What are some other big priorities that you're focusing on now here in 2024?
So initially there were few bids, whether it's on the D2C side or on like the B2B side. Um, Something that we just implemented not too long ago, and we're super proud of it. It's we basically went from having a first response time. I think we were about like 6 or 7 hours when it comes to customer support, Now we're down to about 20 minutes blended,
Mm,
which is great. And personally, like I hate having to wait too
yep.
long when I have an issue. And we actually realized that this was like an issue with John as well, when like there isn't like an issue on the address or anything, and like or the customer have like a repeat purchase that they didn't really saw like the reminder email, and in reality they had more product and they just wanted to cancel this one very quickly. And if we could not address the issue like super quickly, this basically would have led to the customer literally like leaving and canceling a subscription.
Mhm.
And we implemented like a tool called Sienna AI, which honestly is mind blowing,
Okay.
where we were able to pretty much look at the most common issue that we have: canceling subscription, changing delivery date, cancel the orders, getting a refund or product inquiry, etc., and optimizing using AI uh, all like the answer that we could give to the customer. So now basically, if you send an email to our customer support and you're like, okay, is this product good if I'm pregnant, for example? You will get like a first answer in like I think it's 1.5 minutes
Mm,
maximum. And it will be like very much personalized for the product you're asking, uh, with your customer data on it, if it's like order related, etc. So that's something that we're super happy, and we literally implemented this in the last I think months or so. Um, and then a big priority for us at the moment is just to go into retail,
mm,
but we want to go into retail slightly differently. We don't want to go into retail going to the big retailer, because if you go to the big retailer, they're just gonna start putting your product on their online store, etc. And then like you basically shoot yourself in the foot in that sense, where most of your customer will essentially go to buy to the big retailer instead of buying to your own website. So
yeah.
as the workaround that we found is to work with pharmacy.
Mm,
So we did like a pilot test with about I think 37 pharmacy in the last few months, and now we're about to like roll the product out to about 1.5 thousand pharmacy this year,
wow.
which
That's
again
awesome.
is super exciting, super new. But yeah, we just kind of want to sort of like bring a bit more balance between the D2C and the sort of like B2B, while being direct and not working with distributors. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love both of those. So, quick question around the customer support tool, Sienna AI. Heard about it, but I don't know a ton. So I'm curious with onboarding the technology, did it take a long time to kind of get the AI up and running, or like make sure that it's giving out the right answers, kind of like test, do all that stuff? Or was it pretty intuitive in terms of like you kind of just set it up and then it can, I don't know, scroll your website or your knowledge base or, past communications, blah, 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 and
It's
then
a bit like
get to know
it's
it.
a bit like a baby in
Yeah.
that sense.
Love
You
that.
really have to, yeah, you really have to like educate her on a lot of like different problem and solution in that sense. Uh, and it's something very different. So it's clearly like an habit to take when you set up those automations. But I'd say like once you get it, you can quickly like build new automation, and the system will recommend you as well, like based on your tickets, a recommendation that you could set up to automate all the future similar inquiry for this type of problem. Uh, but I think you need to be careful on like setting up few automations, make sure like they're actually running correctly, optimizing those before moving to the rest. So it's clearly like a process that can take a few months to get it right. But um, us, if I just look at the day of today, we have about 70% of all of our tickets that are fully automated. And then the 30% remaining, the generally speaking, like very hard problem to solve, that generally speaking require like a human to look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, no, I'd say it's for like the sort of amount of work that you can produce down the line. I think the onboarding is quite fast
Yeah. And two, I mean, the argument can be made of if you're onboarding a human, right, to like respond to those
as
inquiries
well.
as
Yeah,
well, it takes a
100%,
long time, right? Like training wheels. You have to
100%.
you can't just you have to on ramp them and whatnot. Um also curious, do you happen to know if a lot of support tickets, because we're more talking about um some of the like support tickets that come in as a result of having a subscription program, but in terms of other support tickets, like a customer inbounding with, asking where is my order, which is what, Maloma we see a good amount of, just because, that's so inherent to the tracking process, right? Is everyone's curious where
Yeah,
their order is. Does that Sienna AI tool help with those types of um support tickets as well?
100%. So I guess, you can set it up like up to you. For example, like the way we set it up, and we're quite fortunate that in the UK, we basically offer next day delivery to most of our customers. So we don't really have a lot of like inbound ticket when it comes to tracking, just because if you order before 2 p.m., you get your order the next day. So I guess I don't really have the time to sort of be like, oh, where's my tracking? Especially for in our case. But we started doing a lot more testing, selling in Europe, and obviously we're seeing like this issue of tracking inbound being a lot more important because we have 3 to 4 day shipping time in that sense. And at the day of today, Sienna will essentially just send back to the tracking page, like the carrier tracking page, because we set it up as it is. But you can basically put any link in that sense. You really train it to do whatever you want. So
Mhm.
we can put Malomo sort of tracking link. It's no problem.
Yeah, all that fun stuff. Okay, wonderful. And then I love what the idea behind going to pharmacies and selling there and having like a little bit of a caveat, I guess you could call it, of um yeah, having someone not be able to purchase through a big retailer's online store so that, you're not competing with yourself. So I think that's a great idea. I hope other founders who are listening maybe are thinking through, the what makes sense for their brands
But
and knowing that could be an
if you
option.
think about it as well, it's not just this. It's like any big retailers, they might have like some very tight requirement that you need to meet. For example, like I know for a fact that a lot of retailer will give you like an hour slot to do your delivery. And if you
Mm,
don't meet this hour slot, they might give you penalty on your invoice.
mm,
Then they might have like very long payment terms. And if you look at the reality of started working with this big retailer, it's actually very easy to work with them. They will give you your shot as a brand because they love working with new brand and they love bringing fresh meat into the grinder in that sense.
yeah.
But it's actually very hard to stay with them on the long run. Again, because they have really big requirements. And the thing is, like, if you go and work with like a tier one retailer and your product end up working very well, you might not have like the operations when it comes to the product demand, etc., to be able to like sustain the scale with them, especially if they have like very long payment time, etc. So they might give you a shot, your product might work very well, but then because you're not able to sustain the scale, they might pull you out of the essentially like the network of brands. And I think once you're out, you out. It's very hard to get back into it.
Yeah.
So as a strategy, like obviously we want this very big retailer, and we're not saying we never want to work with them, but it's just the sense of like, okay, if we start working now with pharmacy, obviously the volume is like way smaller. On average, we make about £500 a month per pharmacy. But if you look at the UK pharmacy market, I think there's 15,738 pharmacies. So we can make a lot of money with those pharmacies. But at least, we can sort of like build operations to the point where once we have most of the small pharmacy, we'll go see the big retailer and then we're going to be everywhere. And it's the time for us to open a new market in that sense. And that's a
Yeah.
bit how we see expansion. We don't want to be worldwide straight away. We kind of want to focus on one market, scale it up, and then once we're pretty much everywhere, move to a new one in that sense.
Yes. Yeah. I love that tactic. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap us up because I feel like we can keep chatting. If I don't, I want to be respectful of our time. But Jonathan, this has been so great. It was great learning about kind of the strategies that you all are pursuing without or pursuing and like the uniqueness, I guess, of them with the pre-sale and really trying to think through like dynamite pricing, with saving and having a customer locked in at a specific price and like providing value that way. So thank you for taking the time. This is such a joy, and I can't wait to continue to follow, what you all are doing and what new innovation you all are bringing to the market.
Thank you very much, Maya.